Hello everyone. This is going to be an optional video for the later half of the lab, the dictionaries lab. Labs are usually meant for folks to um, get done after, or I mean, outside of class. But during class, we do try to go over some of it to make sure, just because we have a lot of folks um, in class, and we want to make sure they're on the right track. But uh, yeah, as for the this one, it's optional, so it's not really required to watch. But yeah, this next part of the lab, we didn't really get to finish it in class, so let's kind of go over it just in case folks were having some trouble with it. It is a tiny bit trickier because this second part, it is dealing with kind of nested dictionaries. Right? In this case, we're going to be dealing with a dictionary that has lists as values. Right? So it's kind of applying two data structures together. Right? Lists within dictionaries. Right? So make sure folks are comfortable with lists as the previous week. And make sure that you've done the previous part, right? Part 1 in this lab. Additionally, make sure give it a thorough read on this lesson. Right, in class, we don't really read too much into detail, but I do try to commentate over what's happening. Right, so well, yeah, I do recommend giving it a thorough read, especially since this lesson is it's kind of like a foundation for a lot of data science things, right? So we'll talk about that stuff later. But yeah, dictionaries are really good stuff. So yeah, part 2, the first cell is already given to us. It initializes a variable to do to hold this dictionary. So I'm gonna run it. Okay, there you go. We initialized it. Right? It didn't look like it outputted anything, so I'm gonna force it to output the result of this last run expression. Right, so I'm gonna run this. So there we go. We have a dictionary with 3 key value pairs. Okay. The next couple questions ask us to access things within it. Okay, so first one, it says, hey, print the grocery list in to-dos. Right, the grocery list is right here. Right, we want to access this list. Right, so we can access things in dictionaries with keys, right, not numbers. Right, with the list we're using numbers like 0, 1, and 2. Right, so this would be 0, 1, and 2, but this is not a list, right? It's a dictionary with 3 key value pairs. So let's index the to-dos in with the groceries key. Okay, so this will return a, oh, I spelled groceries wrong. Okay, let's see, key error grocery. Yeah, this says it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Yeah, this makes total sense. It's groceries, right? This right here. Okay, run this. It evaluates to this list right here. So let's print it out, right? Because this is not really printing. It's just a representation of the last run statement. Right? I keep saying that it's a representation of the last run expression because it's a feature in Jupyter notebooks. In classic Python programming, it doesn't really do that. So printing explicitly would actually output it. Okay, next one asks us to dive deeper. Right? In particular, it wants us to dive into the personal list. Right? So deeper as in print the first item in it. Right? So the first item in there is get exercise. Right? We want to grab this list and then dive into the first element in that list. All right, so first, let's grab the list first. Yeah, let's grab the list. So to-dos, and we need to access that list through the key, right? When we index the key, this will return a value being the list. We need to dive deeper and get into this first element, right? Once again, this is a list, right? It's not a dictionary. It's a list, and we can verify it by looking at the type. So there we go, it's a list. Let me undo that. You might have remembered that the first element is indexed by 0. All right, so once again, it might look tricky because there's 2 sets of brackets, but yeah, just try to think of this as a single list, right? This collapses to a list. So when we say 0, right, it'll grab this 0th element, and which is a string, right? It's a list of strings. So let's go ahead and print it out. A single string. Cool. There we go. Okay, the next ones. Let's move on to the next ones. Oh, real quick, for folks who are watching this recording, I recommend pausing and attempting it yourself before seeing the solution. All right, so try not to view the solution and then copy it down. There are so many different ways to implement something. If we're just looking at the solution and copying it down, it'll ruin the creative problem-solving process. I recommend kind of struggling through it and playing around to get the feel of things. Okay, so yeah, just pause it and try it out yourself, right? But between each question, it'll help out a lot. Next couple questions wants us to kind of dive into the data structure and modify some things. This one is saying, hey, change the item milk under groceries to oat milk. All right, so here, I'm gonna do another cell. You don't have to do this. This is just to help us visualize what the dictionary currently looks like. So there's a new cell, I'm just gonna run it. The dictionary currently looks like this right here. Number 3 asks us to change this element to another string, right? Change the string to another one called oat milk, right? So we should break it down, right? First, we need to get the list, and then next we need to get into the list, and then next we need to change it. All right, so here, let's take it step by step. All right, first step, we need to get the list. Okay, so let's get it. All right, so to do's. All right, to get the list, we need to access the value at this key. All right, so that key is groceries. Okay, there we go. We got the list. That's step 1. All right, step 2, we need to dive into the list. All right, so let's dive into the list into milk, right? This is the 0th element. So there it is. Cool, we accessed it. Okay, final step is change it to oat milk. The second we set an equal sign here, this is doing something called an assignment. We're assigning the right side to the left. Okay, so oat milk will be assigned to the left, right? Thus rewriting that element. Okay, so let's run this, and oops, I forgot to put this here. This way we can visualize it. Okay, we see that it is now changed, right? Earlier it was milk, but now it is oat milk, right? So we successfully dove into the list and assigned it. We assigned that element this new string. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Next one asks us to delete an element. There's actually a couple different ways you can do this. The first way you might have seen is in the list lesson, right? In the list lesson. Okay, wait. First, this is saying remove an item in a list. So just going back to the list lesson last week, we saw a couple different ways of doing this. One way was using a keyword called delete, DEL, where the next part is a list and the position to delete the element. All right, so yeah, so go ahead and remember this syntax right here. All right, we need to type in delete, the name of the list, and the position of where to delete it in. Okay, so let's do that. Right, delete the name of the list. The name of the list is accessed through the dictionary, by the way. right? It's accessed through the to-dos dictionary, and underneath the keyword, the key work, right? That's this one right here, right? So we're gonna dive into this value here, but we need to get the check email, right? We need to dive into the second element. Our second element is indexed by 1 because we start counting from 0. Right, so this should delete that check email item. Okay, let's do that and then visualize it at the last part. Cool. Now this no longer has check email. Right, earlier it was here and we successfully deleted it. This is just one way. There's another way too. It's using a built-in list function. Right, so let's use that other way. Right? There's multiple ways on doing things. That's why I encourage folks to pause the video and try it out yourself. So the second way is using this remove function from last week. Right, I'm in the list lesson. There's a function where we can say the name of the list and then dot remove. Right, this is a class function that belongs to the list. Right, we'll talk about class functions towards the end of the class, but think of it as a function that someone made for you. And in this case, it's called dot remove, and it takes an input of the value, right? Not the number, right? Not the position. Okay, it is a value of what we're removing. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply that. Okay, so you know what? Let me actually kind of start over because I ended up deleting it. So I'm gonna go ahead and reinitialize the list. This way we can re-delete it. So you could go to kernel and restart, but this is not that necessary. We just really need to reinitialize this list so we can re-delete this part here. So I'm gonna rerun this cell, go back down, run a couple more things. Okay. So let me delete this stuff right here. Clear. Okay. The alternative way is using the remove function. So we could say the name of the list. Right. The name of the list is right here. Work. Right. We have to index it within dictionary. So yeah, here's a list, and then dot remove. All right. And then the input to this function is the name of the value, right? So it's going to be check email. Right, this is just another way of removing things. All right, so go ahead and run this, and yes, it's just doing the same exact thing. Right, the difference is that this first one is a little more efficient because we know its position, right? And we can tell Python, hey, just go to this position and delete it. And the second one is less efficient because it's actually doing a linear search in the background. In the background, it's kind of checking each element and looking for this string. And then once it finds a string, it'll remove it. Right? So if your list is really long, this is arguably inefficient because it could be checking every single thing until it finds it. Right? But this first one is more efficient if we know the position. So yeah, there's just two different ways on doing things. Be careful on running this cell twice. Check email no longer exists. So if we rerun it, it's going to give us an error. It says, oh, it's not in the list. So yeah, be careful with sometimes running things twice. It carries on from the previous. Okay, last one. This is a little more challenging. This one is really asking us to apply the stuff towards the end of the lessons. The dictionary lesson. So before you attempt this, maybe try to fully understand this part right here. So go into the dictionaries lesson, right? Try to fully understand the very bottom over here. Towards the end of the lesson, we ended up adding a new category to a data structure. Right, so go ahead and give it a thorough read, but pretty much they're adding a category called fungus and then populating it with things. All right, so let's apply this technique. Okay, so our to-dos currently look like this right here. All right, I'm just gonna visualize it again. All right, we went to add a new category, right? We want to increase the size of our dictionary by 1. Okay, and it's going to have a key value pair. The key being packing and the value being a list of these things right here. Okay, so just a quick thing. If we were to try to access it, right, like packing, right, what do you think is going to happen? Right, to-dos packing. This is saying, hey, grab the value at here, right? It's going to key error, which makes sense because there is no key packing. But the second we say it's equal to something, it should insert a new key value pair, right? This is stuff from the dictionaries lesson, right? So in the dictionaries lesson, just kind of scrolling up a bit, in the section accessing, adding, and removing, there's a piece right here. Dictionary elements can create it at any time, right? Pretty much, we just want to say create a new key and then set it equal to some value. Right, so that's the insertion way. So right here we're saying, hey, get packing and set it equal to an empty list. Right, so we'll go ahead and run that. Okay, it doesn't look like it did anything. Right, but let's kind of visualize what happened. Right, I'm just gonna do this again. To-dos. Right, cool. So it did add a new key value pair where the value is an empty list. Now we need to populate it. Right, so one way we can populate it, is with an append method, right? Append function. Right? As you might remember in the list lesson, there was a function where we put a list. Right, the list in this case is packing, and then we can do a dot append. Right? Append means to add an item to the end of the list. Right, so let's see what happens if we add in clothes to the end of the list. Right, clothes. Cool, so let's go ahead and run that. And now we have one item here. Right, it started at empty, but we appended something at the end of it. Right, so let's do that again with the next one. I think next one is shoes. Yeah, it's shoes. Okay, let's run this. It's gonna start over, by the way. When we rerun this cell, this first line kind of makes it start over. It says, hey, take packing and make it empty. Right, so we're gonna start from empty again every time we restart the cell. Okay, there we go. Restart the cell. It became empty, and we added 2 items here, which we see down here. Right, and finally, we can do one more, which is wallet. Okay, cool. So we successfully created a key value pair in the dictionary and kind of slowly appended items in the list. Okay, so just to kind of show another way we can do this, there's kind of a shortcut way. There's multiple ways we can do things, but another way we can kind of do this. Whoops, let me highlight this and comment it. Let's start over. Right, let me just reinitialize this list. Right, well, there is a shortcut way. Clear this. Okay, so our list looks like this. Right, a shortcut way we can do is this same exact technique. Right, we say, hey, get the list. Right, so see, it doesn't exist. Right, to-do packing doesn't exist. So let's make it exist again. Right, in this case, I'm just gonna populate it, hard code it inside of this list. Cool, and yeah, this does the same exact thing as previously. So go ahead and run it, and there we go. See, same thing. Okay, cool. So we just finished this piece, this part. Hope folks found that helpful. I decided to do an optional kind of videos just because of how important dictionaries and data structures are. Right, data structures is a whole new class within itself. This is actually it's like a few or 4 different classes. I think I took like 4 classes on data structures, but most of them were in university. But at Cabrillo there's a couple different data structures, of course. So yeah, this stuff is really important. It kind of makes us get comfortable with dictionaries, right? Dictionaries. This is one of the my favorite implementations in Python. It's just so handy, and there's so many built-in things that can do stuff for you. You know, we're gonna see some stuff towards the end of the semester on data science, right, and some algorithms. Basically, we're gonna do some data science algorithms to analyze large amounts of data, right, and produce some statistics. So please be comfortable with dictionaries and kind of navigating them. A lot of the data on the internet can be represented as dictionaries. Okay, so yeah, hope folks found that useful. Hope y'all have a good one.